Okay, continuing on with lesson 13, the next sequence we need to open is Skyline. So come over to your project panel right here, double click Skyline sequence. Once it's open, you can see it has a nice blue skyline, some well-lit buildings. The book is wanting us to come here to settings and choose vector scope YUV. It's now going to change the one that we're seeing. It also wants us to choose in the menu again, waveform YC no chroma. And the reason we're choosing this is because we're actually deselecting it. That makes the other one full screen on the Lumetri scopes, so it's a little bit easier to see. The next thing we need to do is we're going to look at the center of the circle, and of course you can see the brightest markings is in the blue area, hence the blue sky and everything. We also have some in the red and yellow as well. This first inner line that you're seeing, this is the 75% mark, and that is considered the YUV color limit. So anything beyond that breaks the color limit for that color space. However, the outermost circle goes to 100% for RGB. So if you need to know that for, what you're delivering for, that may help you set your targets as far as color space. Also notice, besides having our primary colors of R, G, and B, which is how most all screens and monitors perceive color, we also have secondary colors such as yellow, cyan, and magenta. And the closer a pixel is to one of those targets, the more color it has as far as which color we're looking at. Alright, the next step is working with the skyline. It says you want to move to 1 second, so you can type that in or you can move the playhead, either way. That shifted us to a specific area on the sequence to 1 second. It wants us to expand the basic correction panel in Lumetria color, so if that's not already open, click here, expand it. And then it wants us to mess with the temperature, so it's going to have us slide it from one extreme, so that really brings out the blues, or if we slide it all the way to the orange side, it makes it a little bit more orangey. So, like I said, by trying these and pushing them all the way to one extreme or another, you're noticing how the color changes visually. And then also look at your vector scope. You can see the color where the most brightness is shifting as we move that back and forth. To reset this, you double click and it puts it back to 0. Of course, since I was holding down the whole time I was sliding it, I could have hit Control Z as well. So that's just another way to reset a feature. Alright, it also wants us to drag the tint to both the extremes. Notice how the vector scope is changing as we shift them from one way to another. Alright, to reset, you double click, so that puts it back. Alright, the next thing we are going to check out is the Rgb Parade. So we want to go into our Lumetri scope settings. So we're up here, we right click, and that's not where settings is, sorry. We're going to click here, and we're going to choose the preset Parade RGB. Once that's chosen, we now see a section divided for each of the 3 colors. So they've squeezed it into thirds. We have red, we have green, and we have blue. And this basically just shows you the separate levels being displayed, and you can also go in and choose what type of parade you see. Let's see if it's here, parade type, and we have RGB there. Let's see, because these parts will have, alright, so it's just wanting you to choose RGB if it was not already chosen. So we do have that, and it says the parts will have equal amounts of red, green, and blue in the Rgb Parade, and it's one of the most frequent tools used in color correction because it clearly shows the relationship between primary color channels. So this is really good if you're trying to level out one of the channels to see which one's the most intense. And it looks like we have the most data, of course, in blue, and not as much in green, and the least amount in red. But that makes sense because as we visually can see here, that blue is the dominant color in this picture. You can see dramatic impact of color adjustments they have on the Parade. If you go to the basic color selection or section of Lumetri color, and you want to adjust the white balance temperature, so we can move this again, or the tint control, which is the green and magenta, and watch how the RGB vector scope changes. So this is pushing the blues all the way up, and this one is also when I'm pushing more for the blue. But notice when we go to the opposite two colors, the blue goes way down and the green then is the dominant one. So it's basically just trying to show you how to read these Lumetri scopes as far as which colors are most dominant. It is a good way to work if you start to understand these graphs and how this stuff works here. Of course, I think the one where it had the scope with the percentages, the 75 and 100, is beneficial, especially if you're trying to deliver something to a television station, so you know your colors are within the parameters. And you just kind of pull things to where you think they look good and then reflect what it's doing over here in your vector scopes. And this one is the Parade RGB. And sometimes you can use these to completely guide off, but sometimes by guiding on these, you'll make your color look funky. So it's kind of trial by error. Color is not always an exact science for everyone. It takes, testing, pulling things one way or another, dropping your exposures, bumping up shadows or more highlights, just to get whatever you're trying to look for, and also to match from one clip to another.